As we move into chapter 4, we're going to basically summarize this process one more time just to make sure that we all understand what it is we're trying to do and why we're doing it. So to summarize the process, make it your work habit to check your emails only 3 times a day. And what we're trying to do is avoid falling into the trap of checking your emails every time you sit down to your desk. And that's extremely important. 3 times a day. Now, 2 is it's a proven fact that we know emails can waste a lot of time in regards to our day. So what we want to do is rather than waste our time at all through the day, let's allocate a certain amount of time 3 times a day in which to focus on that aspect of the work. So we're basically saying we're going to check our emails in the morning, the midday, in the end of day to focus or basically do something on the emails that are in your inbox. And as well as those you need to actually initiate as part of your daily routine, because you're going to create emails that you're requiring information from that may not be applicable to all your incoming mail, but you need to do anyway. And the third thing is let's start looking at how we copy each other and forward emails to each other. As we learned in the historical perspective, one of the things that we're missing today that we used to do 20 years ago was we had a lot of peer review, meaning your project manager and your administrator were in with you as a team to respond to the needs of your communications. However, with emails, we don't have all that peer review. And as a result of it, in order to inform your project manager, hey, this is what I'm doing, you just end up copying. And you end up copying 2 or 3 other people. And some people are really bad about it, and they'll just copy the whole world just so that, they don't have to worry about missing something. But really, the more you copy other people, the more they're going to end up copying you, and the more spam you're going to get in that email. And, and I put down here, even though it may have nothing to do with your work, well, a lot of those copies that you're getting aren't really associated with what you're doing. They're just doing it to cover their ass. So what we're trying to do is think about that a bit. How many pieces of correspondence are you getting in your email that have nothing to do with you? And you can easily develop a form letter that basically says, thank you very much, I've received your email. I see that it doesn't have anything to do with me per se, unless you have other thoughts. And so therefore, we've just filed it away. Bing, or something similar to that. Just saying, basically, I got it. It looks like I don't need to do anything. See you later. And hopefully at some point in time, you can reduce the amount of internal spamming you're doing within your own organization. Now, with that comes the fact that you really should start trying to get more time from your project manager and your administrators to do the peer review, because you'll learn a lot of things if you go to your manager and say, hey, I've completed this email, and why don't you take a look at it and give me your ideas on it. And that's only going to help you learn, because he may come back and say, that's fine for today, but have you realized that 2 years from now, when we're trying to close this job out, we're going to have a big problem because nobody's decided to change the drawings or whatever it may be. So by having that other set of eyes on it and the project manager's perspective on it, you're going to learn a lot that you wouldn't learn otherwise by just hitting the send key or hitting the copy project manager and then hitting send. So you got to kind of think about that. Let's try and go back to what the peer review, which was so predominant in the earlier days, get back to that a little bit, which will help you guys expand your careers much quicker. And, it's easy for us to get, for me as a professor to sit here and say, oh, yes, this and this and this. So what we've done is located in the discussion board, there's a really neat piece of correspondence in there. It's called 8 Scary Stats About Your Email. And I've just quoted 2 of them here. But what we're saying is basically it's not me that's making it up. These are studied um, uh, findings from different management groups, and throughout, even the government has done checks on all this stuff. So stat number 1 basically says we're not all that good at multitasking. And so every time we get an email and we go look at it and we open it up and we start trying to do something with it, we've just stopped what it was we were doing before we did that. So, and it generally, after you finish doing whatever you need to do with that one email that you decided to check on, it's going to take you a good 5 minutes to get back into what you were doing before, if you even get back to it, because it's distracted you. And it's no different than what we run into in labor productivity. And it's our jobs to manage labor productivity. So if I've got a crew of people and they're running 3/4 inch conduit and racks straight down a run that's 500 feet long, if I stop them just because I think I got a little question here, I've now just taken that whole group and disrupted them. And before we get back into the rhythm that they had already established, it's going to take a good 10 minutes or better to refocus on to get back up to the productivity you had right before you took your mind off of what you were doing. So really, you're hurting yourself every time you have to refocus from responding to an email at any given time. Stat number 4 is really interesting too, and there's 8 stats in there, and there's a bunch of stuff in the discussion board that'll really point out that what we're saying to you has been studied and makes a lot of sense. But through hundreds of thousands of emails that they studied, they said the average worker checks emails 36 times in an hour. Now that sounds ridiculous, but really, how often, if you leave your Outlook up on the screen and you're going to look at it about 30, 40 times in that hour because it's on the screen. And you've now gotten so focused on it that your job is being driven by your emails rather than what you had planned to do for that day. And out of that 36 times in an hour that people are looking at their emails, they're only handling 105 emails a day averaged. So here we're checking our emails 288 times to handle 105 emails. That's not very good productivity if just look at the numbers. So when you get into the discussion board and you get a chance to study all the documents that are in there, you're going to see that these numbers are much more significant than you ever envisioned in the past. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and move into the discussion board, and we're going to start looking at what all this information is out there. So let's go ahead and move into chapter number 5.